regarding the structure of a prokaryotic cell, we know that in prokaryotic cell there are no membrane-bound organelles. The organelles in the cell are not bound by membrane. So the first structure in the prokaryotic cell is the cell wall. As we can see, the cell envelope is the outermost covering of the cell. So the first is the cell envelope. Now this cell envelope is divided into 3 layers. It has 3 layers. The first being the outermost one is the glycocalyx. So let us talk about the glycocalyx. Glycocalyx, as we can see, is the outermost covering of the protoplasm. Whatever lies internal to the cell envelope is the protoplasm. So glycocalyx is the outermost covering of the protoplasm. The glycocalyx in turn is made up of 2 layers, an inner S layer and the outer layer of mucilage. So we have glycocalyx, which is the outermost covering of protoplasm. And it is divided into an inner S layer. Now this inner S layer is made up of polypeptides which are rich in amino acids. So the composition of the inner layer is polypeptides made up of amino acids, rich in amino acids, and the outer layer is the outer mucilage layer. And this outer mucilage layer is rich in carbohydrates. Now when this outer mucilage layer is thick, it forms what is called as capsule. So when thick, it forms a capsule. Or it is called as capsule. Now what are the functions of this outermost layer of glycocalyx? Glycocalyx functions as, the first function of glycocalyx is that it prevents drying of the cell. That means it prevents desiccation. Second function is that it being the outermost layer or outermost covering, it protects. So it provides protection. So it protects from viruses, protects the cell from viruses, also protects it from phagocytes, protects it from chemicals. Third function is that it serves as a site of attachment. So it provides attachment. And the last function of the glycocalyx layer is that it provides virulence to the bacterial cell. So it is the layer which is responsible for virulence. So this was the outermost layer in the cell envelope. We now go on to the second layer of the cell envelope, which is the cell wall. So we have at B layer called as cell wall. We can see in the diagram that cell wall lies inner to the glycocalyx. At the same time, it is the layer which lies between the glycocalyx and the innermost layer of the cell envelope, which is the plasma membrane. So I can say that it is inner to glycocalyx and it lies between glycocalyx and the innermost layer of the cell envelope, which is the plasma membrane. Now inner to the cell wall is the plasma membrane, and there is a space between the cell wall and the plasma membrane. That space is called as periplasmic space. Now coming to the composition of the cell wall, what is it composed of? The cell wall is mainly composed of peptidoglycans. So we have the peptidoglycans. Along with peptidoglycans, it also has lipids. It has amino acids and it has fatty acids. Now bacteria like Mycobacterium and Nocardia, they have long chain fatty acids. These long chain fatty acids are called as mycolic acids. So we have Mycobacterium and Nocardia, which show long chain fatty acids, and these long chain fatty acids are called as mycolic acids. Now, what is the importance of this layer of cell wall? Now, it is the cell wall which reacts to what is called as Gram stain, and based on that reaction, the bacteria is called either a Gram positive bacteria or a Gram negative bacteria. So we have the cell wall which is responsible for reacting to Gram staining. And on that basis, the bacteria may be either Gram positive or a Gram negative bacteria. Now going on to the third and the innermost layer of the cell envelope, which is the plasma membrane. So we have at C the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. Now this plasma membrane is the innermost layer of the envelope. It is made up of proteins and lipids. Two layers of lipids and proteins form the plasma membrane. So I can say that it is made up of a bilayer of lipoproteins. Coming to the functions of plasma membrane, the plasma membrane is a very important structure. In the functions, first function is that it serves as a barrier. Secondly, it is the cell membrane or the plasma membrane which is separating the bacteria or which is separating the bacteria's cell from its internal environment and the external environment. That means it is separating the internal environment of the cell from its external environment. So it separates the cell or separates internal environment of cell from the external environment. Now, it is the plasma membrane through which two cells communicate with each other. So I can say that it is responsible for communication between two cells. When the communication is occurring between two cells, it is called as intercellular communication. So it is responsible for intercellular communication. Now, it is the plasma membrane which has receptor sites to receive molecules and to react to those molecules of chemicals. So it has receptor molecules to receive chemicals and to react to them. Now these chemicals could be anything, even things like medicines. So these are the functions of the plasma membrane. Let us now go back to what we have studied about the cell envelope. Cell envelope is basically made up of three layers: the glycocalyx, cell wall, and the cell membrane. About the glycocalyx, it is the outermost covering of the protoplasm. The glycocalyx is in turn made up of two layers. The inner one is called as the S layer, which is made up of polypeptides which are rich in amino acids, and the outer layer is of the mucilage, which is made up of carbohydrates. When this outer layer of mucilage is thick, it forms a covering called as the capsule. The functions of the glycocalyx is that it prevents desiccation or drying up of the cell. It protects the cell from viruses, from phagocytes, and from chemicals. Also, it provides site of attachment, and it provides virulence to the cell. Coming to the cell wall, which lies inner to the glycocalyx, and it lies between the glycocalyx and the plasma membrane. The space between the cell wall and the plasma membrane is called as the periplasmic space. The cell wall is made up of peptidoglycans and lipids, amino acids, and fatty acids. In bacteria like Mycobacterium and Nocardia, we have long-chain fatty acids which are called as mycolic acids. These mycolic acids are a component of the cell wall. Now, it is the cell wall which reacts to gram stain and indicates whether it's a gram-positive or a gram-negative bacteria. Next is the cell membrane, the innermost layer of the cell envelope, which is called as the cell membrane. It is a bilayer of lipoproteins. That means it consists of two layers of lipids and proteins. The function of the cell membrane is that it serves as a barrier. It separates the internal environment of the cell from its external environment. It is responsible for communication between two cells, and it has receptor molecules to receive chemicals, and they can react to it and react to those received chemicals. Also, it acts as a site for metabolic processes. In the next session, we shall continue with the structure of the prokaryotic cell. That is, next is the cytoplasm.